Thanks for joining everybody. Today, we are doing our very first ever Let's Do Lunch. This series will go on every other Thursday for the first quarter, and then we'll see how popular it is if we want to continue it. These are going to be every other Thursday, and they're going to line up with payday so that it helps you to remember when they're happening. This is a little trick to help you not forget about them. You can always catch the recording later as well. So for our very first recipe, we're making an easy egg tostada. And I love this recipe because it is endlessly adaptable. You can swap out the ingredients to make it friendly for a lot of different types of people. It's really delicious, and it's about the same effort as making a fancy sandwich, so it should be pretty quick. So we are starting with our tortillas. I've got white tortillas and whole wheat tortillas here, and we're gonna actually try both to see which one goes better. I've done them both separately, but I've never done them side by side. So all I've done to prep for this is pull the things out of the refrigerator and the pantry and heat up the broiler and the pan on the stove. I haven't done any chopping. I haven't done any measuring. I want this to be a truly 15-minute recipe. So we're gonna start out by putting our tortillas under the broiler, and I'm not putting them on a pan. I'm just putting them plop under the hot broiler directly on the oven grate. The reason I'm not using a pan is because A, it's another thing to clean, but B, if they go on a pan, I have to flip them halfway because the bottom won't get crispy if it doesn't have the airflow. So we're gonna let the airflow circulate through these to get them nice and crispy. The crispiness of these tortillas is what makes this recipe a little bit different from anything that I eat normally. I eat a lot of tacos in my life, but the flat, crispy bottom of the tortilla on these, I think, is just a really nice and different treat. So these are gonna crisp up for a little bit, and then after they start to get a little crispy, I'm gonna put some cheese on them. I'm not using shredded cheese because I don't have any, but if you have shredded cheese, it probably would work a little bit better. I'm just gonna slice up some cheese and then kind of crumble a piece of it with my fingertips. I could use a cheese grater, but, and you might sense a theme here, I don't really feel like getting the cheese grater dirty. I don't want to wash it. So I'm just going to chunk this up. It's going to melt anyways. So I'm just kind of making it into, small-ish pieces that can melt on my tortilla. So while these tortillas are getting crispy, I'm going to start warming up my toppings. We're going to do a can of beans. This can has a pop top, so no need to mess with a can opener or anything, but I am going to rinse it because that's just good practice. I like using canned beans for these sorts of recipes because they're pretty easy, they're pretty fast, and they're pretty nutritious, and they work for a lot of different special diets. So they're gluten-free, they're vegan, they're high fiber, so good for people who have diabetes. And just draining them and rinsing them. I'm probably going to use about a quarter of this can of beans for this recipe. And then the rest of them are going to go in a Tupperware in the fridge, and I'll probably make this again until the beans are gone. So I've got my pan heating up a little bit here. If you want to be fancy at this point, you can add some extra veggies in. You don't have to. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of onion and a little bit of pepper. Just to add a little bit of flavor, but you really don't have to because a lot of the flavor is going to come from the salsa that we're adding later on. Even though I'm not being fancy, I'm still going to wash my pepper. Good practice. Oh, I got to check my tortillas. I can already smell them. Whoa, they're burned. Good start. All right, so the little crusty on this one, so you can see they go pretty quickly. This one still looks pretty good. So I think I'm gonna just use this one. I'm gonna top some cheese on it and make sure that I put it only in the middle. If I do it on the edge, there's a risk that it would drip down into the oven. And I'm gonna put this in here and turn the oven off to melt the cheese because it's pretty hot in there. All right, back to my veggies. So I'm just putting a tiny bit of pepper in there. If you have got any leftover veggies, then you can definitely use these, especially if they're pre-cooked and left over from dinner the night before. that is a great use of them. And I'm not really cooking them, I'm just kind of warming them up a little bit because we don't have a ton of time. Kind of pushing around these a little bit. All right, I can't really see the chat, so if you have comments, feel free to unmute. All right,
it's all good, Hope. It's just me being silly and saying that those were caramelized. There was nothing burned.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, real crispy. So take care, don't walk away.
That's a creme brulee.
The creme brulee of tortillas. Yeah, I made one of these recently and did not preheat the broiler. And so now I learned if you preheat the broiler, man, they go really quick. It's a good way to save time, right? All right. So I'm going to add just a little bit of these beans here, maybe about a quarter of the can. And on that note, I'm going to pull my toasty tortilla out. You are done so. All right. It is nice and crispy though. It's a little darker than I would have liked, but you can see that it became a pretty good sort of crunchy taco shell. And you can achieve the crunchy taco shell without totally obliterating it. It does still get crispy without becoming totally burned. So that's gonna chill there for a minute. So in the pan, I've got some onions, peppers, and some beans. At this point, you can add a little bit of flavorings if you're feeling fancy. I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of cumin, but you don't have to because the flavor is gonna come largely from the salsa. You could do a little bit of paprika or a little bit of chili powder or taco seasoning if that sounds good to you, if you're feeling fancy. But if you're feeling like you want this done really quickly, just skip all of it and just rely on the salsa to give you that flavor. So my pan's nice and hot. My beans are warming up. I could also warm up these beans in the microwave, but that would require me to put them in another bowl, which would be another dish to wash. And I'm feeling like I don't want to wash a lot of dishes. So I'm doing them in the same pan that I am cooking my egg in. So I've just kind of pushed the beans over to the side a little bit. I know you can't see great, but they're just kind of on the side. I might add another little tiny dribble of oil. I'm using avocado oil because that is a heat safe oil. And I'm gonna crack an egg to fry on the other side of the pan while the beans are warming on their side. The reason I'm doing a fried egg, back to our theme of not wanting to clean up too much, you could also do a scrambled egg and that would be great, but I hate cleaning scrambled egg pans more than anything. So I'm doing the fried egg, maybe a pinch of salt on it, because the fried egg just kind of slides right out of the pan and you don't have to scrape and scrape and scrape while you're cleaning. So while our egg is frying, I do want to briefly mention why we're using both beans and eggs. Both of them are a great source of protein, but they also come with different nutrients as well. So the beans are going to come with a great source of fiber, which is really important. And a lot of us are probably not getting enough fiber in our diets. And then the egg has a lot of high quality vitamins and minerals that are going to be really good for our brains, especially. So the egg yolk is a great source of choline, which is great for brains and brain development in babies and kids. So it's important to make sure that we're eating enough choline in our normal days. So you can see how pairing two different types of protein kind of gives you double the nutrients. Now, if you are dairy-free or if you're vegan, you can skip the cheese, you can skip the egg. You could use some sort of vegan melty cheese, or you could add some avocado or guacamole at the end to give it some creaminess. And then if you're a vegan and don't want to do the egg, you could always double up on the beans for a little bit of extra protein. All right. My egg is cooking away. I'm gonna flip it now. Try not to break the yolk. Another quick note on type of tortilla. So I tried with a flour tortilla and a whole wheat tortilla. If you really don't like whole wheat tortillas, but you want to get enough fiber in, you don't really have to worry about using a whole wheat tortilla because you're getting plenty of fiber from the beans. So if you really prefer just a white tortilla, that's fine to use here because you're already getting fiber from another source, from another location in this dish. So that's another plus for the beans is that you can use whatever type of tortilla you enjoy. You could also do it with a corn tortilla or a gluten-free tortilla if those are the sorts of things that you like to do. All right. Our egg is almost done. I'm going to start lining up the other toppings I'm putting on this. So I mentioned that salsa is going to be a major flavor carrier. When we're cooking, a lot of times we use garlic and onions and spices and vinegar and a lot of things to make our food tasty. But when we don't have a lot of time, picking one ingredient that has a lot of flavor and can do that heavy lifting for us is a good way to kind of cut down the time and effort. First step on using salsa is to make sure that it's not moldy. It's not moldy, great news. All right, so I've got my salsa. I have some pickled jalapeno slices left over from something else. You could do a little bit of sour cream or plain yogurt. And to really pump up the veggies at the end, I'm gonna top it with some lettuce. So I think everything is pretty much warmed. My tortilla is not burning hot anymore. And so I'm gonna layer everything up. So I'm going to start by putting the beans and veggie mix that I have on here. You could do it with or without veggies, depending on how fancy you're feeling. So I've got my beans on top of my cheese on top of my tortilla. And then I think I'm gonna put the salsa next because I want that to flavor my beans a little bit more. It is almost gone. All right. So I've got some salsa on top. Then on top of the salsa, I'm going to add my egg. And then on top of the egg, I think I will do a couple pickled jalapenos. I also really like to do pickled red onions on these. I make them every once in a while and have a jar in the fridge a lot of the time, but unfortunately I'm out right now. Pickled jalapenos it is. I'm gonna do a tiny scoop of plain yogurt. You could also use sour cream, but I usually have plain yogurt in my fridge because it just has more applications than sour cream. And then I'm going to finish it off with a big handful of lettuce. So if you didn't put any veggies in with the beans, no worries. You're getting your big dose of veggies here, and you can always add a little bit more. So this is our lovely egg tostada. And I think this recipe is awesome because it can be made in 15 minutes if you're working from home at lunch. It can be made for dinner if you get home from the office and don't have a lot of time to make dinner. And it also worked for breakfast because it has an egg and that gives it some morning vibes. So, ta-da, that's all. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sophie to show you how to log this activity for credit. You good to go, Sophie?
I sure am. Okay,
Thank you.
I am going to share my screen in just a second here. All right, hopefully you guys can all see this. But what we are looking at is my screen and my points in the LiveWell portal, the Virgin Pulse portal. So to log points for attending a LiveWell event and for your nutrition planning ahead, you're going to click rewards at the top right, go to the rewards page, and then you're going to scroll all the way down to participation. It is in alphabetical order, so you have to scroll quite a bit. Scrolling, and then here we go. So if you made this recipe along with Hope by some miracle, you had all the ingredients on hand, you could go into nutrition and log that you tried a new recipe. And if you just attended and watched like I did, you would click attend a LiveWell event. And then you just need to fill out this form here. So I'm going to say not applicable. And then I will say that I attended a nutrition event, today's date. I'm not lying. And then hit submit. Perfect. All done. Easy peasy.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
Yeah, does anybody have questions about that? Oh, not seeing what I'm sharing in the app. Okay, good point. I will look at the app on my phone and see if I can take some screenshots to share here. And Maggie, I will drop a link to the portal and instructions to see the portal and log in the first time and all of that goodness into the chat here as well.
Thank you all so much for attending, and stay tuned in the chat for those additional resources and a survey that will be coming your way pretty soon as well. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day and a wonderful weekend.